name is Nick Niehaus. I'm the co-founder of Connect Marketing, and our business specializes in helping real estate agents become local famous. And the way we do that is we help them get very comfortable on camera, and we make monthly video content which we advertise on Facebook and Instagram. So I do a lot of these kinds of educational presentations. I speak at the St. Louis County Library, spoken at a lot of different brokerages. I was actually just over at the St. Louis Realtors headquarters talking to the CPG agents over there. And I really like to teach people how to do this stuff, but it can be fairly complicated. So we will try to do a little bit of a demo at the end, but I wanted to make sure that we gave you a couple different strategies during a presentation here at the beginning. These are things that you can then go turn around and use in your business. Now, just to be clear, we've been doing this for 8 months already, so there may be, we're kind of assuming you're kind of caught up in terms of the training we've already done. We have already been going over how to use the Facebook Ads Manager, so hopefully you have some experience there. Another thing I want to make sure is clear is do not use any of this if you do not have permission from your broker or your boss to do so, right? It's not like we're doing anything complicated or controversial, but just make sure that you're following all the rules internal to your business, right? Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is a question that I actually get a lot, and that's just simply, do pay-per-click ads even work? Is this something I should even be doing? And a lot of times I get those questions from people that are still doing things like postcard mailings or even doing a lot of print advertising because they're just not familiar with this stuff. And I want to really be clear that this is one of the most powerful kinds of advertising you can do today. And in fact, a lot of people in the marketing world would say that the Facebook advertising platform is the most powerful advertising tool ever invented in the history of the world, okay? So that's a pretty big statement. But the reason for that is it's also the reason Facebook's been kind of controversial lately, and it's that they have a ton of data. So Facebook knows a lot of stuff about anybody who's ever registered with them. Even if you don't currently use Facebook, they can still be tracking you, they still have a lot of data on you, and they can even in some cases still show you ads, right? Google is very similar, but Google doesn't have nearly as much information. So the advantage of doing things through, in particular Facebook, which is what we're focused on today, is that we can target the ads we create at exactly the kind of people who we want as customers, and we can do that ahead of them knowing they're going to work with us, right? So the advantage here is I can come up with an idea of, I really like people, let's just give an example, like I really like families in the Kirkwood area who have 2 kids or more, who make a certain amount of money, who have an interest in golf. Right? Like that's how specific I can be, and I can make sure that only those people see my advertisements, right? So that's the power here, is that you can be very, very specific about who you want to attract. Now that's also the challenge, right? Because if you pick the wrong people, or if you guess and you get it wrong and you're talking to the wrong audience, then you're actually hurting yourself because you're not talking to the right people, right? So you want to make sure that you really understand who that ideal customer is. So that's what makes these platforms very strong. That's what makes this PPC, this pay-per-click advertising very, very, very popular nowadays and very exciting. And we're going to be talking a little bit about how to use it to your advantage. Okay, so the first thing I want you to understand, has anybody ever seen a marketing funnel like this before? Does this look familiar to anyone? All right, you got a couple of head shakes. So just to kind of cover it quickly, so the idea of a marketing or sales funnel is basically just a visual representation of the stages someone goes through from when they go from a total stranger to the point where they actually sign up and buy your product or service, right? And ideally, once they've bought your product or service, they turn into an advocate, and they turn into somebody who's going to continue helping to get business, send you referrals, right? So who here like to get referrals? Okay, some of you don't like referrals, that's okay. That's why you're here, learning to do advertising, I guess. So that's one of the things you want to keep in mind, is that even though you're doing paid advertising, it doesn't mean you're not still advertising to your sphere, all right? The first audience we ever target, we'll talk about this in a minute, is your contact list. It's the people who you already know, who already have a relationship with you. And the reason it's important to advertise to them too is that everybody's advertising to them. If you don't stay in front of them and stay top of mind, you're actually going to be losing out on referral business you could have otherwise gotten. But this is really more designed for people that have never met you before, right? So that's the other half of what we're talking about today, is total strangers. They have to go through this process you see on the screen in order to become a customer of yours, right? So I want to do a quick survey here. So how many people here are married? Okay, so we got a lot of people who are married, right? Who got married on the first date? No? Nobody got married on the first date? Who got married in the first month? Okay, nobody got married in the first month. Who got married after less than a year of knowing the person they're married to? So we got one, all right, we got at least one. So everybody there knew, dated for over a year before they got married, right? So that's a pretty standard thing, right? People don't get married on the first date. You hear crazy stories like Pete Davidson and Ariana Grande, and they're getting married after like 2 months or something, but that's pretty nuts. It doesn't happen very often, right? On the other hand, when we advertise, a lot of times we have the attitude that someone's going to marry us on the first date. And what I mean by that is that people will put out ads that are more appropriate at this level of the funnel. They'll put them out at the very beginning. And so those are the kind of ads you'll see. Like if somebody were to send me a postcard and I've never heard of them before, and they said, hey, I'm a great real estate agent, look at me, I'm so awesome, you should call me, right? I'm not going to call them. I don't know who they are. There's no reason for me to call them, right? Just simply telling me to call you is not an effective way to advertise. And it's actually, maybe it was at some point when there was very little advertising, but there's so much of it nowadays that's just really annoying. It doesn't cut through the noise, and it just gets tossed out every single time, right? So that's the number one thing you want to think about here is when you're doing advertising. Today we're going to be talking about lead gen, but I personally hate the term lead. I hate the idea of calling a person a lead because they're actually a person and they're another human, and we should be more focused on them as a person and building a relationship instead of just a list of leads, right? That kind of dehumanizes the people on that list. But we're going to talk about lead gen because that's what we're doing today. But you got to remember, you got to put things out there. You got to give people a chance to get to know you before you ask them to step up to the altar and get married, right? So we want to make sure that we focus on these first couple phases. And the reason I wanted to put this up first is that we are talking about this stuff down here today. Do not ignore the first couple stages, right? So just really quickly, a couple things. What kind of stuff could you put out there if someone's never heard of you before? What kind of stuff could you put in front of them to give them a chance to get to know you? So anybody that's been here before, what kind of stuff have we talked about already? You took great notes. That's awesome. So it's things like video, right? So video is probably number one right now. And the reason video is number one is that it is the most engaging kind of content you can put out there. It's much closer to being there in person than things like a blog post or even audio. But the version of this that we saw about 5 or 10 years ago was blogging, right? So for years we heard about, man, you better start a blog. If you don't start a blog, you're going to miss out on this huge opportunity. You're going to get all these people on your website. Well, the whole idea was that was this stage, this awareness stage. So that if you did blogging and you got a lot of people to come check out your blogs, that was a good way for them to get to know you. But those blogs were usually educational. They weren't salesy, right? You didn't write a blog post about how you were the best real estate agent in town. You wrote a blog post about, a couple things to think about when you're considering listing your home, or, here are the trends of color and paint for the fall, things like that, right? They're valuable content. So make sure you're remembering that, is that you want to make sure if these are people that are new that you haven't talked to before, you need to give them a chance to get to know you in this awareness stage, and you got to give them a chance to develop some interest, some curiosity. Why do they want to work with you versus one of the other 8,000 or so real estate agents in the St. Louis area, right? Today we're talking mostly about this, so I just want to make sure it's clear that you can't just skip those steps. If all you ever do is try to ask people to make a decision and take the action at the bottom of the funnel, they are going to tune you out. There are a lot of people who do that every single day. It's kind of like the guy that knocks on your door and asks you to sign up for an estimate for something. The way that job works is you got to knock on enough doors to get somebody who just happens to be at the right point where they're ready to sign up. Most of the people say no, right? We don't want to be that person when we're advertising. I actually used to knock on doors quite a bit when I was in my previous career, so I know what that's like. So this is the next thing I'm going to talk about, is who are you speaking to? So when you're creating these advertisements on, in particular, Facebook, you got to know who the audience is. And the number one audience that I would start with are the people that you already know, right? So another quick show of hands, who has a database with contact information of their sphere of influence? I hope everybody has a database, right? That should be an essential tool in your business. That is the first thing you're going to want to target with your Facebook ads. And this is something it took me a while to kind of wrap my head around this, and I always thought like, well, hey, if I already know 300 people, like why would I show them my ads? Like I should be showing my ads to people that don't know me. But the reality is, unless they're my closest family and friends, people that I see on a regular, consistent basis, just because I know them and just because I maybe call them every few months, doesn't mean that I'm top of mind with them, right? It doesn't mean that they think of me whenever they hear the word real estate, if it's in your case, right? Or marketing in my case, right? So what I need people that anytime they hear marketing, they think Nick, right? That's what I need. And if I'm only talking to some of those people every few months, they're not going to remember me, right? That's better than nothing, but you got to stay in front of them more and more, especially today compared to, even a couple years ago. And a big part of that is, again, because everybody else is advertising. So if they're staying in front of your audience, you want to make sure you stay in front of them too. So one of the things you can do, this is something we covered in a previous training, is you can actually upload your database to the Facebook advertising platform, and it will target all of those people for you. So all you do is you download their name, phone number, email, address, if you have it. You upload it into the Ads Manager, and it creates a list of those people for you. That's a great tool. The next thing that a lot of people don't really think about is targeting your ads at the people who have liked your business page already, right? So why do you think you need to show them ads? If they already like your page, they should see your stuff. But why do you think they need to be advertised to? Any ideas?
So they're in competition.
Well, so you can be top of mind with them, right? And like you said, competition. The thing people don't realize is repetition, is people don't realize that if you post something on your business page, only 2 to 4% of the people who like your page will actually see that post anymore, all right? So this number was much higher even just a couple years ago. There was they call it the reach apocalypse. It was like this big thing. Oh my gosh, now nobody's seeing my posts anymore. And there's a couple reasons it happened. One is it improved the user experience, because a lot of businesses were posting a lot of dumb stuff that nobody really wanted to see, and it kept popping up on our Facebook feeds, and we were just getting sick and tired of it. So that was part of it, is Facebook responding and saying, hey, a lot of your posts are just kind of noise. They're not really useful. So we're not going to show them to as many people anymore, because we want our people that use our product to enjoy it, right? That was part of it. The other part of it is they wanted more money. Facebook is a for-profit company. They wanted people to start paying them to show their posts to their audience. And so that's another part of it. They don't usually admit that, but we'll be honest, and that's part of why they did it, right? So at this point, when we post something on our business page, only 2 to 4% of people on average see it. Now, if it's a video, it usually does a lot better, because they really encourage the sharing of videos. But most of our posts are not being seen, so therefore, when you advertise, it's really important that you include your page followers. You make sure that they get advertised to. So usually between your sphere of influence, or your database, and your page followers, most people are going to have anywhere from maybe 300 total between those. And I've seen people that have up to maybe 5,000 or more in that list, right? So that's the first audiences you want to talk to. And those are called warm audiences, because they already know who we are to some degree. They're not total strangers, right? Now the other side of it is the cold audience. And the cold audience is anything that's not a warm audience. So it's pretty straightforward, right? A cold audience are just people that have not heard of you, that do not have any sort of relation to you. So if from that example earlier, if I went to Kirkwood and I said, hey, I want all the people who live in Kirkwood that have a certain number of kids, yada, yada, that's a cold audience, because I don't actually have a relationship with those people. The main difference between these two is that if you're aggressive with your advertising to a cold audience, that's asking them to marry you on the first date, right? So you cannot be aggressive with a cold audience. A warm audience, I would still not be quite that pointed, right? But you can be a little bit more aggressive with your warm audience, right? So if you're in desperate need, you got to get another listing or another buyer in the next 2 weeks, and you just aren't sure what to do, the most effective thing you can do is be aggressive and show a really promotional ad to your warm audience, right? Because you never know, one of them's going to have a referral for you or something, right? So that's kind of the shortest term thing. What I see happen a lot is people get really greedy. They create a cold audience and they get really promotional because they're feeling desperate and they feel like, man, I gotta get an ROI right away, and it just wastes their money and their time, because those people get turned off because they've never heard of you before, and so you just want to be really careful about that. So if you want to be aggressive, make sure to start with a warm audience. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about buyer leads, right? The internet is sometimes kind of slow here, so I'll see if we can play this video example for you. We might not be able to. So I want to talk about, there's a lot of ways to generate leads on Facebook, all right? So what I'm showing you today are by no means the only ways to do it. You can go to 1,000 Facebook, advertising gurus. They'll all have their slightly different version of it. What I'm going to show you today is what we do for our customers and what we've found is the most effective way to do this kind of stuff. But by all means, advertising is about experimenting. So something that works really well today, tomorrow there might be a different technique that works a little bit better, right? So this is just meant to be a kind of a little bit of a sample or a taste of a couple ideas, things you can try, and then you want to be experimenting on your own as well. So what we really like to do is we like to be promotional only when we know that people are already interested, right? So that sounds maybe a little confusing, right? Because if we're showing this especially to a cold audience, like how on earth would we know they're interested? But one of the newer features on Facebook makes this much easier than it's ever been before, and that is our ability to create an audience based on someone watching a video. All right, so what that means is that I can put this video on Facebook, I can advertise it, and I can say, I want you to record, and it's all anonymous, so it doesn't show you names, but it shows you a total number of people. What it'll do is it'll say, I want to create a list of everyone who watches at least 10 seconds. Right? So I might choose 10 seconds because that means, they watched a little bit, they had some interest, but I don't want to cap it at, 100% because not everybody watches the whole video. So that 10 seconds is usually kind of a good threshold. Anybody that watches 10 seconds or more of a video, they probably had a reason they did it, right? They were a little bit interested. So what I would do is I would create that audience, and then I would first run this as an educational piece of content, right? So with this video, let me see if it's loaded yet, because I would like to show you an example, if possible. Alright, so let's let it load for a second, and then I'll start it over. Tripping on the wires here.
What is an accredited buyer's representative or ABR? The accredited buyer's representative designation is awarded by the National Association of Realtors to realtors that complete advanced training and have proven experience in serving the special needs of buyer clients. Buying a home is unlike any other purchase. It's smarter to work with an accredited buyer's representative because, 1, an experienced professional will be covering your back. Accredited buyer's representatives have to prove their track record by providing proof of their experience helping home buyers in recent transactions. It's impossible for an inexperienced realtor to get this designation. 2, you'll be working with an up-to-date expert who has completed specialized training about buyer concerns and the current market. 3, you get a higher level of service without paying any more. An ABR designee can advise you on every negotiating detail and improve your chance of securing your dream home. In today's competitive market, your offer price is just one part of the negotiating strategy. As your local ABR, I'm equipped to help you find, negotiate, and close on the home of your dreams. Please click the button below to get in touch and schedule a complimentary buyer's consultation.
Okay, so just to give you kind of a sample there. So obviously the idea is she still has a call to action at the end, so someone that finishes the video and has stuck around, which is rare. Most people on Facebook, there's actually a designation where you can advertise the people that watch 95% of the video, and then there's one for 100 because no one finishes the video. So it's like everybody closes it like at least a second before it ends. So there's a big range in the middle, right? So not everybody's going to finish it. Anybody that does, though, they had a lot of interest. So you want to have a call to action at the end. But what we really want to make sure we do is we get anybody that watched some of that video. So some of the people that were like, oh, what's this whole thing about this accredited buyer representative thing? I want to know what this is, right? So we created an audience of those folks, and then we follow up with the more aggressive ad at that point. Now, there's another reason we do that. So we do it, first of all, because it's a better kind of process flow. But the second reason we do it is that very few people are going to take an immediate action after watching a video. So on the one hand, video advertising is the most powerful kind of advertising you can do, but it actually doesn't have as good of a click-through rate. So this is kind of something that's puzzled people for a while. And so what we've kind of found over the years is that whenever someone sees an ad of any kind, they're going to take one action. They're not going to take 10 actions, right? That's why you shouldn't, if you're going to run an ad, you probably shouldn't put a phone number and an email and a website because you want them to just do one thing. They're only ever going to do one. So you pick the one you want the most. So when somebody watches a video, what they've done is the action is watching the video, right? So that's why a lot of times we've actually had some posts that have performed really well that didn't have a lot of likes and comments on them. And we were kind of like, that's weird. But the videos were getting watched all the way through. And the reason was these are people who the action they took was they committed to watching the video. So because of that, this type of advertising where you follow up and you show them something that's not a video, that's more of a call to action type ad, can tend to be the most effective kind of combination of the two.
But how do you know, just because they watched a portion of it, that they're interested in what they watched?
You don't know, right? There's some might not be. Like some people, like they looked at something else and the video kind of auto-played, right? So it's not foolproof. There's going to be some people in there that were not interested or that, you know, just kind of stuck around longer and then decided, hey, maybe I don't need this. But you've already qualified the people a lot more than you typically would. And the other reason you want to be more intentional about who you show your promotional ads to is if you show them to everyone, you're gonna upset a lot of people, right? They don't get that upset about it, but like they don't care, right? Someone who watched this, there's a much higher chance that they are a potential buyer, right? I mean, if they stuck around, they're showing interest, they're showing intent, which is what you're looking for. So it's not foolproof. You don't know that all of them are interested, but you're avoiding showing your stuff to the 90+% of people that aren't currently interested, right? It's going to save you money, and it protects your brand. That's one of the big things on social media. It's very easy to screw up your brand by being self-promoting all the time, right? The number one industry this seems to happen in is multi-level marketing. So I don't know if any of you have friends that started selling, you know, there's all kinds of things you can sell, right? Essential oils or something like that. And all of a sudden they're posting every single day and it's all about the stuff that they sell. And eventually you kind of like, okay, like just I'm going to unfriend you or unfollow you because it's getting kind of annoying. I've had some friends like that. And that's what they're doing is like, and unfortunately they're kind of destroying their credibility by only being promotional. Now, on the other hand, there's a few people I've seen, they're a little bit more rare, but they get on and they do educational stuff and they teach people things and they have some variety to the type of stuff they talk about. They're much more interesting and I'm much more likely to keep them as a friend and then ultimately also buy their product or service, right? So you want to track the audience, create a custom audience for it, and then the last thing is you follow up with the promotional ads, and we'll show you those next. Okay. So you could obviously run these ads to just any kind of audience and you may get leads, right? It's not impossible to get leads by directly getting in front of people, but just again, keep in mind, you're going to be burning some bridges. So in this case, what we did is we were going to show this as a follow-up to that first video. So a couple things that you want to make sure you include here. Now this is an example of a very simple ad, okay? So first of all, it's a picture of the houses in the area where we're advertising. Now this is important. This is an actual picture from South St. Louis, right? Like those houses. Well, there you go, right? So you recognize it even, right? That's even better. If somebody recognizes it, that's even a bigger deal because then it really resonates with them, right? We want things that feel personalized to the people we're advertising to, right? So I've seen a lot of people use stock photos of houses, and I mean, I was, my business partner Vanessa was making ads, and she didn't have pictures locally, and so she was having me look through. I used to do, like I said, door knocking. I ran a painting company. It's basically an internship where college kids would paint houses for the summer, and so I did that. I worked there for 6 years, and I've been basically everywhere in St. Louis and knocked on like probably a quarter of all the doors in the entire St. Louis region. So I'm very familiar with what the houses look like in St. Louis. And so she's showing me all these, and I'm like, nope, those eaves don't exist in St. Louis. And oh, here's this thing. Oh, that kind of front door I've never seen, right? And I could really recognize it. So it does matter. The picture you put in here does matter. Everything you put in your ads should be personalized to the people you're showing it to. And that's the trade-off that we're kind of learning right now, is because we can target so specifically, we also have to make ads that are specific to those people, right? If we don't make them specific, it's weird. It feels uncomfortable. It feels, like you'll notice if somebody shows you a picture of a house that's in San Diego, right? Like you can tell it's not in your neighborhood, and that makes you feel like they don't know your neighborhood, right? It's actually going to turn people off. So the other thing is up here, we're talking about find a South City home to buy, right? So if you live in South City, or if you're looking in South City, that's going to resonate with you. If you just say, find a home to buy in the greater St. Louis area, well, it's still personalized to St. Louis. It's better than nothing, but it's not personalized to the specific area you're trying to advertise to. And then in this case, we said, I can help you find the perfect 1 or 2 bedroom house for your needs, because that was, again, we're basically talking to first-time home buyers with this ad, right? That's the kind of house they're looking for. So what we did in this case, this is a very simple ad. It's targeted at people that already saw the video, and there's just a learn more button. So of all the buttons, there's about 10 different kinds of buttons you can put on here, things like sign up, etc. Learn more tends to get the best click-through rate. So just kind of keep that in mind. We're very used to clicking on learn more when we're on the internet. And what happens in this case is this thing over here is what's called a lead form. All right? So again, we've done this in previous trainings. If you want to know how to set those up, we can probably get you the slides of the video from that. But this is essentially a landing page that opens on Facebook. So why do you think it's important that it opens on Facebook instead of taking them to your website? What do you think that does for you? Any ideas?
Does it help you track if you're successful?
Well, it is easier to track because it stays on Facebook and they control all the data, so that's definitely helpful. The other thing is for every second it takes for a website to load, you lose 5% of the people who are waiting for it to load, right? So if you have a website that's really slow and it takes up to 20 seconds for a page to load, everybody's gone. You probably experienced that. You go to trying to open an ad and it just takes forever and you just leave, right?
Well,
So-
you don't want them to go to another site, even if it's yours. You want them to stay engaged on Facebook with you.
Exactly, right? And that, it's for Facebook's sake. They also want people to stay on Facebook too, right? Like for them, it's better if you never leave the site. And that's kind of the idea is like just always stay here. In some countries, Facebook basically is the internet now, which is kind of terrifying. But those are places where Zuckerberg has his drone in the sky and it provides internet connection, which is awesome. But then the only thing they have access to is Facebook, and that's kind of why they do it, right? So it's the same mentality here. Is they want to, and it's also better user experience. If I click something and it instantly loads on my screen, that's better, right? It's just more user-friendly. The other thing, and this is pretty cool, it's a double-edged sword though, is that it will load their contact information into this form automatically. So whatever information they use in their Facebook account, like their email or their phone number they signed up with, will automatically load in the form, and all they have to do is hit submit, right? So you can see that obviously that's going to increase your conversion rate. More people are going to opt into your ad than if you didn't use this. The downside though is more people opt into your ad. So you may actually get a bunch of contact information from people that weren't all that interested. It was just so easy to sign up that they just ended up clicking on it, right? We even had people that have signed up and didn't even realize that they signed up, right? So that's the downside. So there's also a feature you can turn on that makes them confirm that they want to submit, so they have to hit 2 different buttons. That tends to cut down on those kinds of leads, so there's not as many mistakes, right? But that is a pretty cool feature, and it keeps them on Facebook. It eliminates the need for a landing page altogether. And to design this, all you basically do is it's going to ask you when you set up the ad, you put up a picture, you put up a description, and it asks you what, just basically click the boxes on what kind of contact information do you want, right? So really easy. So if you do this, this is basically just like a 2-step advertising system. Once the lead comes in, this can be integrated with your CRM, and it can also be set up to email or text you. There's all kinds of different things you can do. But obviously the key is, if you're going to do this kind of lead gen, you got to call this person immediately. And that doesn't mean like an hour later, it means immediately. And like if you look at the conversion numbers, we did a training, we do a marketing training every month called the Real Marketing Breakfast in Brentwood. And we were talking about lead conversion a couple months ago, and I think the stat is something like in the first 5 minutes, you're going to get a 300% better conversion rate than if you wait until after 5 minutes even. And after an hour, it's even like 50% of that number, right? So you're looking at like sometimes 5 or 6 times better conversion in those first couple minutes.
I do use Facebook ads, and I've never seen a form to fill out.
The lead form?
Yeah.
You've never seen how to set it up, or you've never seen one as an ad?
I've never seen how to set one up.
Okay.
Never had it ask me if I wanted a lead form.
Well, so are you talking about using boosted posts, or are you actually in the Ads Manager product?
Probably boosted post.
Probably boosted, yeah. So you will not be able to access this through the boosted post
So
feature.
there's 2 different ads.
Yeah, so boost, and so that's another part. Just real quick side note, boosting a post is kind of like advertising light. It's a very, very simple version of the ad product on Facebook, and that's why, is that it gets people to use it, right? Hey, give me $5, give me $10, and we'll show it to more people.
Are you going to show us how to use the ad product?
We're gonna do a little demo at the end. I mean, again, we spent a couple months going over that already, so I didn't want to do too much on today, but there are videos of that that Jennifer can get to you, right? But yes, that's something you have to do through the Ads Manager, and you want to pick the objective for the campaign would need to be lead generation, right? So this will only show up if you chose the right kind of campaign. So that's going to be lead generation. So just kind of a template you can use for the headline on the ad. It's simple stuff like find a home to buy in, and then use the most specific area you can possibly come up with, right? So if you're advertising you're looking for people in Kirkwood, make sure you say Kirkwood, right? And then again, another one you can do looking for a new home in, and then you put the St. Louis area. So those are fairly straightforward. And literally, we just walked. I live in South City, so we just walked around one day and took pictures of a bunch of houses. We use those in the ads for that part of town. Okay, so now here's another thing you can try, right? And this is if you're going to advertise to a cold audience, somebody that maybe hasn't heard of you much, or maybe they've only seen a couple of your ads. This might be a better idea because this is a little bit more in depth. It gives people a chance to read a little bit more and make more of a significant decision. So this is, just to be clear what this is, so this is called ad copy. So anything you write in an ad is just called copy, right? That's why the term copywriter comes from that. And this is what's going to show up right above the picture. So every ad you ever run is going to have a picture or a video. You basically can't create advertisements that don't have that. You can boost posts that are just words. Not much of a use for that, but you can do it. So the picture would be below this, but I wanted to make this as big as possible so you can kind of read it. So I'm just going to read it through. What I want you to think about here is you want to listen for, is this talking to the pain points of a specific person, right? So what this says are, what are some of the problems that come with renting your home? Not able to decorate, nagging landlord, pet restrictions, no yard, lack of parking, noisy neighbors. Let me ask you something. How have all these problems affected your life so far? Have they affected your mood, your stress levels, your relationships? Listen to me. You do want to have your own home eventually, don't you? Now is the time. I can help you find the right home at the right price. Just tap the button below, and you'll automatically be on your way to solving your renting problems forever and feeling the security and freedom that comes with home ownership. So this is only going to speak to someone who's renting, right? If you are not renting, then you probably don't read past the first couple lines. You probably are going to move right on. And if we did it right, we're not even showing this ad to you, right? But if you are renting, and the way you come up with these things is you just call your customers and you ask them. You say, hey, I know you were a renter before you bought your home with me a couple months ago. What were some of the reasons that you wanted to get out of renting? And if you do a little bit of research, they're fairly common reasons. These are kind of most of them, right? And you're going to get some of these answers. That's the best way to find out because some of these things are different city to city. So if you just make assumptions, you might be talking about the wrong things. But this is speaking directly to their problem, and then it's saying that we have a solution, right? So that's kind of the format you want to be thinking about here is you want to make sure this is how you get on the same page with them, right? So you're kind of saying, hey, I get it, right? Are you experiencing some of these problems? They can be pretty annoying, right? And then if you think about it, these are kind of the specific problems, but these in the middle here are the things that really matter, right? Is that it's affecting their mood, it's stressing them out, it may be even affecting their relationships, right? That's the stuff that really matters to them. These are more of the features, nagging landlord, restrictive pet rules, stuff like that. So if you do this kind of thing, again, you just have the picture at the bottom. You just want to make sure that you're talking specifically to the kinds of people that you want to attract, right? So if you don't want to go for first-time home buyers, then don't talk about renting, because those are probably going to be first-time home buyers, right? Another version of this is if you're looking for kind of that move-up buyer, then write something about how, you have more kids now, and they're running all over the house, and there's not enough space, or you got too many pets, or figure out what's going to resonate specifically with them. And I will say, if you're the kind of person that does make some phone calls and talks to a few customers of yours and actually gets very detailed answers from them, you will write better ads than your competitors, right? Because that's just a step that a lot of people don't do. They just kind of wing it. And if you're more specific, you're going to get better results. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, this is a landing page opt-in. So this is a little bit of a different type of lead. So sometimes it's great to put out an ad and just say, hey, are you looking for a house? Let's talk about that. Sometimes you want to give people kind of an intermediate step, right? So maybe they don't want to talk directly to you. Maybe they're not ready to have that conversation. But you still want to capture their information because they're starting to look, right? So if we want to catch somebody who's more in a situation where, they're starting to look for a house, but they're not ready for that conversation, then this is an example of what you can do. So the first thing you would need to do if you wanted to do this kind of an ad is you want to create a list of homes, and you don't need 100 homes, like something like 4 or 5 is enough. So what you do is you just go into the MLS, you find properties that match certain criteria, and those criteria, again, are based on who you're advertising to. So again, back to that Kirkwood example, if you're looking for people who want to buy in Kirkwood, then you're going to want to find a couple houses in Kirkwood, and you're going to want to get even more focused and say, hey, these are going to be homes that are, for instance, under $350,000. And if you want to get even more specific, maybe you want to look for homes that have a pool or that have some sort of additional feature, right? What you do is you create a few, just grab a couple, grab a picture or two, copy and paste. You can use there's a tool called Canva, canva.com, C-A-N-V-A. It's a free graphic design tool with lots of templates. It'll make your stuff just look a lot nicer rather than just throwing it into like Microsoft Word. But just put a couple houses in there, maybe 1 or 2 pictures each, and all you're doing is you're creating a little piece of content that they can download, right? So you're giving them something that's a little bit valuable. It's not the most value in the world, but it's a little bit valuable. And then you write an ad about that particular list you created, right? So attention St. Louis, do you know anyone looking to buy a home? We've compiled a free report of homes for sale under, in this case, $300,000. Some of the homes may even qualify for special financing programs. And then you just give them a link, and that's where it takes them to the landing page where they can download this list, right? So I'm sure a lot of you have landing pages on your website. Does anybody here have a downloadable that people can download on their site? No? Okay. So what you do if you do want to do this is the easiest way is when they opt in to the email list, you just automatically send them an email with the attachment. Right? So most of us have CRM software of some kind. And if you need your IT person to help you with this, they can. But a lot of the landing pages, like we actually use something called Lead Pages, which is one of the most popular landing page softwares. And you can set it up so you just put the file, the list we created, we just upload it to Lead Pages, and if anybody signs up, it takes them to a page where they can download it, right? Now the reason you do that is that you want to get this person's contact information, because if they do click on this, they're showing some interest, right? If I go, hey, I want that information, I want to know how much these houses are going for in a certain area, well, I don't want to just say, cool, here's the thing, and hopefully they come back. I want to make sure that I'm staying in front of that person. So the 2 things this allows you to do is, number 1, now you have their email, so you can start an email drip, right? So again, you should probably have something like that set up already. But you start doing an email drip and staying in front of them. The other thing is you can create a list of those people, right? So that anytime you're creating a list and then showing ads to those people, it's called retargeting. So you can target people who visit your website, people that watch a certain amount of a video, so on and so forth. So anybody that clicks on this ad, you can track those people as well and continue showing them ads, right? So you're going to have their email, you can send them emails, and you're also going to have ads following them around, right? So if anybody ever looked at like a product on Amazon and you start seeing ads for it everywhere you go online, so that's retargeting. That's a pretty basic version of it, but that's what you can do for your business as well. So that's why you do it that way. Another idea on lead gen, and this is probably one that we've seen the best results from, is actually using a current listing to get buyer leads. So obviously everybody knows if you have a listing, it's usually a great way to pick up a couple buyers, especially maybe people that come to open houses, right? But you can do ads on Facebook that'll cut out that extra work and start getting you buyer leads directly, right? So all you're really doing here, and it's actually to sell the house. So the first objective is let's just get the house sold, right? But the second benefit is that anybody who signs up for information on this house is a buyer potentially, right? And a lot of them don't have real estate agents. If they're on Facebook clicking on ads to look at houses, a lot of times they don't have an agent yet, right? So this is again a pretty simple model. It's something that even if you have a listing that you know is going to sell on the first day and there's no reason to really promote it, I would still recommend doing this because you're going to pick up a lot of potential buyers and also renters if you're looking for renters, right? Because they tend to click on these as well. So again, the ad, just the copy, just so you know what it says. This is just listed. You get a couple of house emojis. Emojis are great because they catch people's eyes. It helps them kind of draw them into the ad a little bit. 5308 Devonshire, new listing in Southampton. 4 beds, 1.5 baths. Click below to make an appointment today. And again, this is I believe this is something we designed in Canva. It's just a little bit of a layout. It's got a few of the pictures from inside the house and obviously a shot of the front of the building. Very, very simple stuff. You can probably put that together in about 5 minutes. And then what happens is this resulted in 13 buyer leads and also 1 renter. So we ran this for, I think it was about a week. I'm not sure how much money we put into it, but it couldn't have been more than about $50 because we don't generally put a ton of money into the listing ads. We were able to get 13 buyer leads out of that. So again, not all of those are going to be buyers that end up working with you, so don't look at that as like 13 new customers. But that is 13 people that could be potentially clients of yours, as well as also getting the house sold. So that's great, especially if you're having trouble moving a house. This is gonna be a great way to do it. Okay, and then now we're going to look at the other side, right? So listing leads. So this is probably the more important one because obviously the listing is really what we're looking for in real estate if we can get it. So this is a bit of a longer piece of copy. And actually, wait, where's this again? Oh, so I'm sorry, this shouldn't say listing because this is still a buyer ad. So this one says, see it before it hits the market, 4 beds, 3 baths. Go here to get price, location, and more pics. So and then it has a little bit of a description of the house. So this is a little bit just a longer version of it. Main level has a fantastic living room with large picture windows that let the outside in. Yada yada. You can pick it later if you want to. Just another idea in terms of how you can do those. Okay, so this is when we get into the actual listing stuff. So this is for attracting sellers, right? So again, we're not going to necessarily use a different approach. So this is again kind of the same approach to using a video first and then following up with an ad after that. So let me just go ahead and see if we can play this one real quick. So we'll give it a second to load a little. While we're doing this, I'm just kind of curious, who here has made at least one video with themselves in it for social media? Okay, got a couple.
Not real estate related, yes.
It can be any kind of video. I'm more just wondering who's gotten on camera. Okay, so we got a few here. All right. So that would be one thing that, we're not talking a ton about video ads today, but this is kind of the way of the future. If you look at especially people under the age of 25, they are on video all the time. That's how they communicate. So video is not a fad. It's not even really a trend. It's actually a shift in the way we communicate, right? So we end up talking a lot with our clients about it's totally normal to get nervous about being on camera. There's a lot of psychological reasons that we feel uncomfortable seeing ourselves on video, but it is something that you just have to get over because it's kind of where everything's heading, right? So if you're not doing video yet, you don't have to do anything fancy. I mean, literally just getting your phone out is a great way to get started. So I don't know.
How long should a video, what's the maximum time a video should be?
So the rule of thumb with video is almost, think of it from the standpoint of the shorter the better, down to about 15 seconds. You probably don't want to go too much shorter because you can't get enough in that time. But nothing longer than a minute for people who don't know much about you, right? So what you want to think about is if I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see a video and it's 10 minutes long, I'm not going to watch any of it because I don't have 10 minutes, right? Unless it's someone who I already follow who I really like, right? If it's somebody who I've been following for 6 months or a year, then I might do that, right? So you can do longer stuff, but just remember that anything under a minute is ideal, and especially for colder audiences. So with our clients, usually the first few months, all we make is stuff under a minute, and then after that we might do a little bit of a mix. We might have one that's 3 or 4 minutes, and then a couple that are shorter, right? If you do want to do longer stuff, the best way to do it is to use live video, because people actually watch live video 3 times as long as they watch pre-recorded, because it's just kind of a curiosity factor. The only downside is a lot of people tend to go live with nothing to say. Okay, so I'm sure we've all seen that where somebody gets on camera, they talk for like 5 minutes, and you're like, did you have a plan for this? Or like, are you just telling me your life story, or what's going on here, right? So live video actually has to be planned more than pre-recorded, because you can get on camera for a pre-recorded video and delete every take, right? You just keep restarting. So if you don't know what you're saying, you want to do 10 takes and figure it out, you can. Live video is not that way. So whenever we do live video, I mean, a lot of times it's actually kind of a show format. So like I do something every Friday called the Bourbon Friday Show, where I interview different people from the St. Louis startup scene. And that's about a 25-minute long show, and there's a very clear structure to it, right? So it's an actual interview format, and then what we do with that is we take the finished video, and some people watch the whole thing, but we take the finished video and we cut it into one or so minute chunks, kind of the best 5 answers to the best 5 questions, and then those become their own videos, and those tend to get even more views than the show itself, right? So you can repurpose that kind of stuff. So I'm going to try to play this. It doesn't really look like it's loading, but we'll find out.
What your mailbox says about you.
Alright, well, we'll give it one more. Alright, it's
There
loading a
it's
little
going.
bit. Yeah. Alright, we'll try it.
When buyers are looking at a neighborhood, They often scout the area and judge your house's curb appeal before they schedule a showing. What's on the outside of your house, including your mailbox, is a reflection of the inside. If your mailbox looks fresh, people expect to see a well-maintained house interior. Your mailbox appearance shows that you care about the state of your property. On the other hand, if your
Alright, you guys
mailbox
get
is
the
in
idea.
disre-
We'll go ahead and move on. So obviously that one is a little more focused on somebody who would be thinking about selling their house, right? So we're kind of coming at it from the other angle. And again, what the video says is very important. If the video is catered to a buyer and then you try to follow up and get seller leads, you're not going to have a lot of luck there, right? So in this one, I mean, I just kind of like the topic in general because something I never really thought about is thinking about your mailbox as a representation of everything else about you in some ways, right? But again, the format here is exactly the same otherwise, right? So we started with a video, we figured out who actually gives a crap about what we're talking about, and then we follow up with just those people with the promotional ads, right? So in this case, this is a version of, again, a lead ad that you can run that is going to be more focused on sellers. So you would say homeowners, again, we got an emoji there. You know, I know emojis are not as popular with people over the age of 25 probably, but they do catch everyone's attention, so they do work really well. We are experiencing a crazy seller's market right now. Home values are high, and homeowners right by you are getting incredible offers for their homes right now. Click below to fill out if your home to see if your home qualifies, right? So again, pops up a little form. There's not much, you know, you just got a picture at the top there. Again, a lead ad, and they can sign up there, and that's a good way to get some potential seller leads. Now, obviously, keep in mind seller leads are always going to be harder to get than buyer leads, right? But when you get them, they are very nice to get, and they tend to be pretty strong. So this is another version of what you can do. This is more of, I'm not as big a fan of this type of promotion because it's just been used a lot. Once something's been done a lot, it tends to be a little bit less effective. But this would be a market report for a certain area, right? So again, it's the same sort of thing. You go into the MLS, you pull up your data, wherever it is you get your stats on a particular neighborhood. And a lot of those programs will create a report for you that looks fairly nice. But you can also go in and create your own on Canva. And again, that's a way just to do something that's a little bit different than everybody else. So in this case, we actually have a list of some homes and kind of what they're selling for, what they're listed for. And then actually down here, we have some stats for this specific neighborhood. So this is for Southampton. So we've got the average sold price, the average active list price, the average sold price per square foot, stuff that people might be wanting to know if they live in that area and they're thinking about selling their house. But really, this is kind of just the downloadable. You call this lead bait is one of the terms for it. So it's something that you provide to people in exchange for their contact information. So there's a lot of different ideas you can come up with here, but this is obviously very catered specifically to sellers because they're going to care about these stats, right? All right, now another thing you can do, and this one is pretty cool in my opinion, are what are called messenger ads. And so this is one where you want to start a conversation. So as opposed to just giving somebody something to download or asking for their information, this is a good way to get them talking to you. It's a little bit more work on your end because you got to be able to respond to them pretty quickly. But you can even automate some of these things. We have what's called chatbots now, right? So chatbot is basically kind of an automated response tool that can answer questions for them. So you can set that up. But this is just great to get a conversation going. So again, I'll read the copy for you. It says, if you're thinking about selling your house, you probably want the best possible price for it, right? Research shows that there are certain best practices for getting your home ready to sell. For instance, did you know that hiring a professional stager to furnish your home helps the home sell for 17% more on average? Watch to learn about a few other tips for getting your home ready to sell based on the data, right? So then she does this video. So again, the copy is there to get them to watch the video in this case. It's not to get them to click the button, it's to get them to watch the video. So just like a newspaper, the headline is there to get you to read the article. The first paragraph's there to get you to read the second paragraph. That's how copywriting works. You got to think, I want to move people through this. So this is here to get them to watch this. Then this is here to get them to click the send the message button, right? So a lot of times you'll have, I'll give you 3 tips in the video, but I have 7 more. Send me a message if you want to hear more about them, right? Now once they click that, it's going to open a conversation in Messenger, which is, that's that icon right there. That's the Facebook Messenger icon. And they're going to just, from there, you got to talk to them, right? So you either got to set up a chat bot or you got to answer their questions. what is really cool about this is that this is a real conversation, right? So if you just ask for their email and phone number and then you reach out, sometimes it's hard to get a hold of them, and if you do get a hold of them, they don't want to talk, they're not in the mood for it. If they clicked on this and they started the conversation, right now they're in the mood to talk, right? So that's what they're telling us, is they're saying, hey, I wanted to talk to you, I sent you a message, right? You do got to respond to them quickly or have a chat bot in place, that's the challenge. But these leads tend to be stronger if you get back to them right away, because you can control that conversation, right? So you can answer their question and then start asking them questions, right? So, oh, are you thinking about, moving right now? Why was it that you reached out? What are you looking for more info on? Okay, so just a couple kind of ideas in terms of ad writing or copywriting here. You always want to try to start with a question if you can, or you want to start with addressing the pain points that they bring up on their own, right? But a specific question, short and right to the point, is often going to get the best results, right? Because if they read it and it resonates and they answer yes to that question, or if it's something that matters to them, they're going to stick around and read the rest. If it's not, they're going to probably move on. And that's actually what you want to have happen. You only want the people who are qualified to actually watch your video, right? So you want to speak to their situation. We talked about talking specifically to their pain points, and making sure that you're addressing those with a solution, right? You can also talk about their fears. So some people might, for instance, if you're renting, you might be afraid that, hey, I'm going to miss out on my opportunity to buy a house because prices keep going up. So if I don't do it soon, I may actually miss that window. So just make sure you're speaking to what they're actually thinking. Don't force things on them that they're not thinking, right? And then the next step is build up the possibilities. So you talked about their fear, you got their attention. Now you want to show them that you have the solution, right? So you want to show them that stuff, and that's where we talked about, hey, I've got a system, or here's an article you can download, or hey, send me a message, I'm happy to answer your questions, right? And then the last thing you want to do with your ads is you always want to have a clear call to action. So that call to action is either in the video or it's in the copy, right? It can be in both, but again, if you have a call to action at the bottom of your copy and they haven't watched your video yet, you want to make sure that that's okay. If it's not okay and you want them to watch the video, then don't have a call to action in the copy. But you got to have it somewhere, and you only want to have one, all right? So that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see, is people are trying to ask someone to do multiple things in their ad. You can only ask them to do one thing. So if you want them to send you a message, don't give them your phone number, right? If you give them your phone number and ask them to send you a message, you're giving them two things to do, right? If you want them to send you an email, don't give them your phone number and ask them to text them at the same time. So there's a few things kind of suggested you can try. You can have them click the button below, share the video. So a lot of times if you're being more proactive and you're being looking at this long term and thinking, hey, I want to build an audience, I want to have people that I know are interested in working with me specifically, you may want to use the share the video call to action. Because it's not a salesy thing, right? I'm not saying, hey, let's talk. I'm saying, hey, if this was useful, just go ahead and share it with somebody else who might find it useful too. If you're lucky, they'll actually tag their friends below the video, right? And hey, I know my friend was looking to sell their house and they tagged their name on it. That actually sometimes are the best leads you can possibly get, right? Because those are almost like referrals. You can ask them to comment, ask them to send a message, and then if you want, you can ask them to call you. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind is if you put your phone number in a video, a lot of people nowadays are watching this stuff on their phone. They can't click the phone number in the video, right? So you want to make sure you also put it in the copy or even put it in a comment below the video where it is going to be clickable, right? So a lot of times their clients will want to make sure, I want to make sure my phone number is in the video, and that's fine. It's just we want to also make sure it's somewhere where they can actually click on it. So we got about 15 minutes left. So in terms of doing kind of a demonstration of some of this stuff, I'm just going to run you through, since a lot of you weren't here before, where some of the stuff is on Facebook. And then we'll also take a minute to take some questions. So you start on the Facebook page. This is the home page, right? So is everybody on Facebook already? So I can give you a second. All right, so the first place you're going to want to go is the Ads Manager. So anybody who's done a boosted post, like I said, that's a very different kind of separate thing from Ads Manager. It's a very kind of light version of ads. So where you're going to find the Ads Manager, if you're on your home page, and again, remember, you have to have a business page to access the Ads Manager. If you don't have a Facebook business page, you have to set that up first. So we're assuming you have one, and again, we've done that in a previous training. If you need to go back and look at those videos, you're going to come over to this left-hand side where it says Explore, and you're either going to see Ads Manager, which is right there, or you might need to click on See More, and it's going to expand, and you'll find it in there. But it should say Ads Manager in there somewhere. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that.
Not at all. Nope. Not there. Home, posts, groups, reviews, videos, photos, about, community, others, jobs, info and ads.
You're under Explore.
There's no Explorer.
No explore.
Are you on the home screen? You're on.
On the home screen on the page for my.
Yes, you've been on home, the actual home of Facebook. So click the Facebook home button. This button right here. The Facebook icon. You need to be on the home screen. This is the very front
That's
page
the
of
business
Facebook.
page.
Okay.
Yeah, not on the business page. Yep.
Okay.
So under Explore, and if you don't see that there, the other thing you can do is just type in facebook.com/ads manager. If you type this part in, it'll also pull up. Okay. So again, this is stuff we covered in previous trainings. So if you're not sure how to access some of this, you'll probably just want to ask Jennifer for those recordings. So once you're in the Ads Manager, the way that you create a new ad is you're just going to click on this button that says Create right here. Okay. And what I'm gonna do real quick, and this again is just a quick overview. We have other videos of how to do these things. Is you're going to want to choose lead generation as the objective of your campaign. So if you do not click lead generation, you can't use the lead generating ads. All right.
Well, it asks, how do you want to create ad campaigns?
So if you've never used the Ad Manager before, you might have to do a setup. So again, you'll want to go back and watch those videos from the previous trainings that we've done. So if you do have it set up, if you're not able to follow along, just follow along with a neighbor. So you're going to click on lead generation right here. And then campaign name, you want to go ahead and make sure you name it something that you're going to be able to find later. So don't just leave that blank, lead generation. So if you're looking for seller leads, we'll say seller leads in Kirkwood, for example. And you click on continue.
I miss how you got to this page.
Yeah, I can't.
Okay, so if you go to Ads Manager, so again, this is just a quick demo. Today is obviously about how to do lead ads. If you want to see how to set up ad campaigns, you're going to want to look for the previous training. So this training was set up in a sequence, so you're going to want to go back and watch those trainings.
Okay.
Okay, and then you'll have a lot more detail there than we can go over right now.
Okay.
Just have a couple minutes left. So in here, this is the ad set version. This is the ad set step. So you have campaign, which we just did. Now you're in ad set right here. And again, go back and look at the previous trainings. So we're moving pretty quickly. You're going to want to make sure you choose a name. Make sure you name the ad set. So we're going to say families in Kirkwood, if that's who we're targeting. First thing you do is select the page you're advertising from. So most of you are only going to have one option there. Just leave that as your own page. And then you come down to the audience, and this is where you can choose who you want to have see the actual ad, right? So you want to make sure you're very specific here. So we're going to type in Kirkwood for the location. And that's actually going to give us everything within 25 miles. It's probably a little bit big, so why don't we lower it down to 10? And if you want to get even more narrow, you can put in a specific address, and you can go all the way down to a 1 mile radius. So if you want to put in Kirkwood City Hall address and then do 1 mile, you're going to get just the people within 1 mile of that location. So that's going to give you the location. And the next thing you want to do is come into here and type in all kinds of stuff, right? So you can type in parents. You're going to get parents of people of different age ranges. So parents with teenagers, preteens, preschoolers, brand new parents, all kinds of stuff, right? So again, if you want to advertise to people that are likely needing a bigger house, well, people that are new parents are probably going to be in that category, or at least going to get close to it, right? So you can be pretty strategic there. So that's demographics. You can type in all kinds of demographics. And then the other thing you can do is interests or behavior. So that's where we can target people that are, for instance, interested in golf, right? So if I select that, what I now have is everybody in that circle who has an interest in golf. So we'll just kind of leave that as our example here, because the real thing I'm going to show you is on the next page. So then you're going to select your budget, $20 a day, whatever it is we're doing. You don't have to spend that much. You can spend as little as, I believe, $1 a day. So if you want to just do $1 a day, you can. That's probably, if you're going to experiment, I'd probably spend, probably $5 a day or something just to try it out. And then you come down and click continue as well. And this is the add section. So this is where you're going to actually decide what is the image or video, right? So if you want to do an image, you're going to do this one. If you're going to do a video, you do this one. If you don't have a video, you can do several images and it'll turn into a slideshow for you, just something else you can try. But the part that I want to show you is where you write your copy. So if you come down here to text, all the things we talked about being good in your copy, so everything you want to say in your advertisement goes in this text box right here. So just type out text box and you'll see what happens over on the, so this is what the ad is going to look like, right? So where I said text box, that's gonna pop up there, right? So you can see it'll keep updating as you continue to type things. The next thing you want to do is also include a headline. So we'll say Kirkwood. So up here you're going to have the copy, and then this is the headline. Everybody can see, I'll highlight that for you. No, it won't highlight, but that's where it is, right? It goes right there. And then that last thing I mentioned was the button, and right now it says sign up. So if you click here, you can change that, right? So we can go to learn more, you can do download, book now, apply. Obviously for most of what we're doing, learn more is probably the one we want. Although if we had a downloadable, if we had something that we wanted done to download, we might want to put a download button on there, right? Alright, so that's the actual ad. And then if you scroll a little bit further down, because we said that we were doing a lead generation campaign, it's going to automatically include a lead form. So these are some of the lead forms we've created in the past, and they're going to show up here, and if you already have one, you just select it and it's going to load it for you. You can also create a new one, so I'll just show you that really quickly here. So you click on new form, and this is where, again, you're going to decide all the parts that are in the form. So right now it just looks like this. You have the headline, learn more by providing your information below, and it asks for an email and name. If you want to add any questions to that, you click on questions, and you can see more options, and you select all that kind of stuff. So if you want to get their first and last name, you can select those rather than the full name. If you want to do them separately, you can do the phone number, city, street address, etc. And you can even ask your own questions. So if you want to ask a question like, how soon are you planning on moving, for instance, right? Or if you want to ask, what part of town do you want to move to? You can add those questions, and then people will sign up. Every question that you add, though, is going to mean you get less leads. So every time you add an additional step someone has to take, it's going to be harder for them to get the completed form done, and less people will do it, but at the same time you get better leads, right? So if you're getting like too many people are signing up and you're just getting a bunch of nonsense and they're not all, a lot of them aren't really all that interested, you may actually want to come in and add an additional question, and that's going to reduce the number of people who sign up, but the people that do sign up will be more interested. So that's the question section, and then you can also do your intro, which is going to go up there with the headline. And the other thing you got to remember is that if you want to collect someone's contact information on Facebook, you do have to have a privacy policy on your website. So you're technically supposed to have a privacy policy on your website no matter what, but especially if you're collecting contact information, you have to have that. And you're going to need to put the link to the privacy policy in here. So you would go ahead and copy it into the URL, all right? And then the final thing I'll show you, and we're just kind of running out of time, so again, if you want to know how to do this, we did cover this in last training. You're going to want to go back and watch that video. It's going to have a full about hour of detail on how to go through and set this stuff up. But the thank you page is also important. It's kind of one of the overlooked things in advertising. But you got to remember, when somebody sends you their contact information, they want to be assured that they didn't do something dumb, that didn't just sign up for some scam or something. So make sure you explain on the thank you page what you're going to do with that contact information, right? So if you're going to send them something, say, hey, thanks for signing up. Your downloadable guide of those houses is on its way. If you're not going to send them something and it's more like they signed up to talk to you, say that there too. Say, hey, thanks for signing up. I'll be in contact within the next 24 hours. Maybe give them your phone number so they can save it so they know it's you that's calling, so they don't just think it's a stranger. But don't ignore the thank you page. That's something we see a lot. It will actually help your lead conversion quite a bit if you take a little bit of time to customize that based on the campaign. And then you can also have them view a website. So you already got their lead information. Maybe you want to change this to the houses you have listed currently. So if it's a buyer lead and you've got a couple listings on the market, maybe you want to send them to check that out. So you can use that button as well. So that's the lead form. And when you're done, you can save it or just click finish. We're not going to save anything today, so I'm just going to close that out. And once you've got your lead form ready to go, you just come down here and you click confirm. So I'm going to do this. This is actually going to now create an actual ad on Facebook, so I'm going to have to delete it once I'm done. But what it's going to do, one of the nice things about Facebook now is that Facebook reviews the ads very quickly. It used to take up to a couple days for them to approve an ad. Now a lot of times it happens in a matter of minutes. Sometimes it's even instantaneous. They've been a little stricter about housing ads